The danger of Imperiex has been nullified. The threat of Brainiac 13 has been destroyed as well. The dangers threatening the Earth are no more. Warworld is gone, Apocalypse has left, and our worlds are no longer at war. But that doesn't mean that this is over. People have died the world over, and they need to be mourned. People have sacrificed parts of themselves in order to combat the threats, and they need to find those parts of themselves again. Then there are those who charged into the field and haven't yet returned. Basically, we've got a few plot threads to tie up, so let's close out this booch. My name is Ben, and this is Comic Book Breakdown, episode 13.8, Our Worlds at War, Part 8. Our final issue in this crossover is a one-shot. This baby is Our Worlds at War, World's Finest, and it is also written by Jeff Loeb, who is teamed with 12, count 'em, 12 teams of artists for this baby. Most of the artists who work on this issue are the regular Superman artists, including folks like Mike Wieringo and Jose Marzan Jr., or Ed McGuinness with Cam Smith. But there are a handful of artists who work for DC, but generally in other areas. So let's run through this. We've got Mike Wieringo and Jose Marzan Jr., Doug Monk and Walden Wong, Phil Jimenez and Mark Morales, Mark Buckingham and Wayne Foucher, Bill Sankowitz is back, Yvel Guichet and Dexter Vines, Pasquale Perry and Marlo Alquiza, Todd Knock and Larry Strucker, Duncan Rouleau, Ed McGuinness and Cam Smith, and the whole shebang is colored by Xylenol Studios. Basically, this issue is going to explore the unfinished plot threads of the event, and each time that we jump a scene, we're going to change to another group of artists. Unless something really stands out about that particular artwork, I'm not going to spend a lot of time commenting on the art here. All of these pairings are excellent artists in and of themselves, and this issue is going to take long enough for me to break down, and I don't need to spend a bunch of time describing all 12 of these artists. As with Loeb's previous issues, we have a speech running through this one. This time, though, the speech is from American General Douglas MacArthur. In 1951, as the Korean War was ending, General MacArthur was dismissed by President Truman, so he then addressed Congress, and thanks to the wonders of television, the American people as well, and excerpts of that speech run through this issue. In the world of the comic, though, we open on Superman. He stands in a shadowed space. His costume is whole and hearty, and his expression is serious as he talks to Batman. So we're inside of a Batcave, okay, and the Batman himself sits at a computer console, his attention focused there. The stubble of a few days hugs his jawline, indicating that whatever he's doing, it has Batman's full attention. Superman wants him to do something. He needs him to do it. But Batman stands his ground.
The JLA knows that he has priorities and anyone else can go to hell.
Superman moves closer, arguing that the world needs to see them. It's still reeling from the war, and strong faces would be a welcome assurance by many. Now Batman stands, moving to being chest to chest with his old friend.
He can't shoulder the world's problems. Not right now, he says.
Wonder Woman teleports in and acts as a calming influence. Everyone mourns in their own way. Surely they can all respect that amongst themselves. She tells Batman that if he changes his mind, the Justice League teleporter is always available to him. Then the blue energy cycles up again, and Superman and Wonder Woman teleport away, leaving Batman alone. Except for another caped figure. The Red Tornado, who is a red android in a blue cloak, steps forward from the shadows. He says that there are tens of thousands of spaceships that were involved in the war. Young Justice could be anywhere in that field of debris. Batman glares at him.
They will find them,
he grunts. Loeb doesn't do much to set the scene here, instead relying on how tense the confrontation is between these two famous superheroes and our familiarity with them. I appreciate the floop out of this scene because I'm dropping these issues into my Young Justice collection, so seeing them directly referenced here is nice, especially at the beginning of the issue. I also like that McGuinness makes sure to have the old costume of Robin displayed in the background during this scene. Batman has lost a young ward once before, and now his latest Robin, who is the leader of Young Justice, is missing in the field. Of course he's hyper-focused on finding him, especially if it means ignoring everything else. The Red Tornado is the Justice League's liaison to Young Justice, and a fairly regular cast member of that book, so he has a particular interest in seeing them return safely. For those wondering, Young Justice was drafted into the war by President Luthor. They were initially asked to work as a search and rescue team, helping to get the wounded to the Paradox ship. However, they were distracted by the Black Racer delivering steel to Apocalypse. They did not have a good time during this arc, though. Clearly, the Justice League is unaware of all of this stuff, and honestly, it's been so long since I last read those issues that even I'm not sure of really where they would be in their narrative right now. But I like the posturing between Batman and Superman, I like Wonder Woman being the peacemaker between them, I like Bats' focus on the kids, and I like the focus on Young Justice's status in general. This is definitely a jarring opening, but it's fairly hard for me to complain about it. The main reason that it's jarring is because this collection hasn't been covering the full scope of the war. We've really only been focused on Superman's narrative and his personal experiences. But it is important to keep in mind that this event did spread out over DC's other books, including 3 issues each of Wonder Woman, Superboy, Supergirl, and Young Justice, 1 issue of Impulse, and then not counting this issue, 10 standalone one-shots. World's Finest needs to pick up all of their plot lines and close all of their stories out, so it has a lot of work to do, and it can't afford to just focus on Superman. Plus, assuming that this issue plays out how I suspect, starting here with bigger, broader concerns means that this issue can end on the smaller, more focused character story of Superman, which would then take us back into his individual ongoing series. I really like the difference in priorities for Superman and Batman as well. After all, Superman just pushed a technological living planet through a teleporting tube back to the dawn of time so the living cosmic being trapped inside of it could explode. As a character, Superman has always been more focused on bigger concepts, saving the entire world, or all of reality, or all of multiverse existence, more so than a character like Batman has been. Batman is a very ground-level character, and while he can definitely operate at those higher, more cosmic levels, he generally doesn't. So it makes sense that the little people, like Young Justice, are his main priorities right now. He views the League, and himself in particular, as responsible for their safety, too, because he's lost a sidekick before, and he doesn't want to lose anyone else. Again, I am very satisfied here. The story then jumps to the chasm where Atlantis once was. The Justice League, meaning Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Kyle Rayner, The Flash, Plastic Man, the Atom, and the Martian Manhunter, have set up a device upon the ocean floor. A towering projection of Aquaman rises from it. This device, the Atom explains, will act as a homing beacon through space and time in an attempt to call Atlantis/Aquaman back home. It will also serve to warn ships away from this gap in the seas, which has remained somehow. All of the team make various promises to keep looking for Aquaman, and then they talk about how dope he was. How dope Aquaman is, because he's not dead. Don't worry, we know he's not dead. Hey, we believe he's not dead. We love you, Aquaman, don't worry about it. On the shore of Maine, the Titans visit the lighthouse where Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, grew up. This team consists of Nightwing, Donna Troy, Arsenal, and Tempest. All of the Titans were once sidekicks, and Tempest, in particular, was once known as Aqualad. He is also the person that is responsible for teleporting Atlantis to wherever it's gone. They're all bummed out by the loss of Aquaman/Atlantis, but Tempest is especially. Aquaman trusted him to save Atlantis, and he honestly isn't sure if he did. Arsenal offers to let Tempest and his family stay with him if they need it. Good thing they weren't in Atlantis, huh? He says, sticking his foot into his mouth. Tempest doesn't take it personally, though. He's the one who used the magic. He just wishes he could switch places with them instead. From across the ocean's surface, the Flash comes running up. This particular Flash is Wally West, by the way, who was Kid Flash back in his Sidekick days when he was running with this particular group. He apologizes for being late and asks a kind of weird question. If Aquaman is gone for who knows how long because he's totally alive and not dead, then does that make Tempest the new Aquaman?
Dramatic reverb.
Given how generally unfamiliar with this group I am, this scene works fairly well. I'm familiar with who these characters are, like just in the general names and code names and maybe some of their powers idea, but I'm not familiar with who they are as people. But I still like the scene and it still works fairly well. Well, hang on, we actually have two scenes here. The Titan scene works pretty well. The Justice League scene is a bit weirder. There are two things of note there. The first is the chasm in the water thing. I described back in the Justice League one-shot that Atlantis' disappearance created a massive channel in the sea reaching out towards the horizon. I thought then that this was just part of the teleporting, like the spell took all of that water too, and then it would just fall back in amongst itself like water does. But this scene would indicate that those waters have actually remained separated, and that they are going to stay that way indefinitely. This bugs me because we don't know why that is happening, and there's really nowhere else to find out more about it. Aquaman's ongoing series ended back in July of 2001, and the Atlantis is Missing plotline doesn't even get fully explored until July of 2002 in the ongoing Justice League comic. So this baby isn't just a mystery, it also stays a mystery for 9 months, and that's a bit frustrating as someone reading the comic books now. The other thing that bothers me is something that Wonder Woman says. After Superman talks about how cool Aquaman is, Wonder Woman takes her turn. She says that, as a former princess, she is proud to be able to call him a king. And as a woman, well, she'll let him know what she thinks about him as a woman when next they meet, implying that she is either in love with him or is at least attracted to him. This mainly bugs me because there's never been a Wonder Woman/Aquaman romance, so this sentence really goes nowhere. It's also something that's like really private to just announce to your coworkers. Like, I would have never said that in front of someone like Plastic Man. Plus, for such a personal character moment, it's weird that Jeff Loeb is the one who gets to write it. He isn't the Wonder Woman writer in 2001. That was Phil Jimenez, so if anyone should be picking who Wonder Woman ships with, it's him. This is a small complaint, so, it's not like it derails the whole issue or anything, but it is the kind of strange character moment that comes from an unfamiliar author writing a character and having them say something awkward. The Titan scene, in contrast, works really well emotionally. Tempest is torn up about his role in Atlantis vanishing, and his friends do their best to support him. That's great. And when I realized that this Flash was actually Wally, a sidekick who graduated to lead character, I was just smiling. That is a great use of continuity and history, especially with him being the one who suggests that Tempest graduate up to being the new Aquaman. That's smart, and I always relish when younger characters get to step up and kind of fulfill their potential. The only thing that I don't like here is how even Tempest doesn't seem to know what he did. He is the one who cast the spell. How does he not know anything about it? He doesn't seem to know where Atlantis went. He doesn't know if the people who were there are okay. He doesn't even know how to get them back. He doesn't know jack sh-
No swearing.
Leave it to Bamfin Magic to crap on a nice character moment. Elsewhere, 3 members of the Justice Society of America sit around their old meeting table as they play cards and drink. We've got Jay Garrick, the Flash, Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, and Ted Grant, aka Wildcat. For the uninitiated, the JSA is basically the 1940s version of the Justice League. A lot of these characters were actually the first version of their particular identity, so Garrick is actually the original Flash, who debuted back in 1940, and Barry Allen was an update of that concept for quote-unquote the more modern age of the 1950s and 60s. As they sit around and drink, they also talk about Hippolyta, one of their own who died fighting Imperiex. A younger member of the team, Sandman, comes into the room and is surprised to see them all so relaxed, and maybe a bit drunk, given that they're going to be at a memorial service. He tells them that everyone is waiting on them, but they kindly annoy him until he leaves. Outside of the room, Sandman apologizes to Superman and Wonder Woman on their behalf. Wonder Woman says not to bother, though. If one of them had passed in this war and Hippolyta had lived, she would be doing exactly the same thing. Superman tells Sandman not to worry about them. They won't be late. Then they leave. The 3 older men toast one last time and finish putting their costumes on. Wildcat pulls out a painting or a photo of Hippolyta, and then they go to say goodbye. This is such a simple scene. It's just 3 guys talking, remembering the old glory days and their friend, and it's so heartwarming and comforting. Once again, the JSA is a group that I don't have a lot of familiarity with, but this scene is so nice that I just dig it. A lot of comic books are built around the idea of a found family, or people bonding over the strange adventures or dangers that they have faced together. But as the decades of publication pass, those relationships can easily be forgotten or ignored or grow into something completely different. And this is a group of characters who have existed since the 1940s, so for them to feel so connected and still so in love with each other, that's just impressive. All of the men here clearly appreciated Hippolyta's beauty, but they also loved her zest for life, her attitude, and who she was as a person. Yes, they do mourn her loss, but they don't necessarily mourn that she's dead. Hippolyta died doing what she always did, whatever she thought that she had to, and they love her for that. This is almost more of a warm goodbye than it is a sad one. I also enjoy the respect that Wonder Woman and Superman have for this group of heroes. Despite them playing cards, despite their drinking, they have utter faith that these men will suit up and do their duty. That's lovely. We move to Arlington National Cemetery the next morning. Amanda Waller stands alongside of a limo parked next to the rows of white tombstones. Over her earpiece, President Lex Luthor says that he doesn't understand. Given what General Rock did for America, he could have a hero's parade down Pennsylvania Avenue, not just another simple tombstone. Waller agrees. The president doesn't get it. To Luthor and to Waller, Rock may have been one of a kind, but to Frank Rock, he was just another soldier, and he should be buried alongside every other person who gave their life to the United States. It's as simple as that. Reflected in Waller's glasses, standing at Rock's tombstone is a single figure. Their body is hidden by a trench coat and shadows, and they're only briefly illuminated by a match strike. The man lights his cigar, takes a drag, and then walks away, telling Rock goodbye. Most of this scene is an echo from Rock's appearance in Superman issue 173, highlighting that Frank Rock is a man and nothing special otherwise. But I like that Luthor doesn't comprehend that idea, because of course he doesn't understand humility. He's Lex Flooping Luthor, he's the greatest man alive, and he knows how awesome he is. In fact, everyone should celebrate him, as far as he's concerned, just because he's that great. So those character moments for him are great, but naturally the intriguing thing here is that Frank Rock appears to have survived his bombing run on Imperiex, but that he is also pretending to be dead. Remember, Rock told the strange visitor that all that he wanted was to fade away. He came out of retirement because his country asked him to, but he didn't want to be in another war. So, Luthor and Waller have arranged for him to fade away once again, and he has been honored, but he has not been celebrated for his actions. These 2 pages are also some of the nicest Bill Sienkiewicz pages that I think I've ever seen. They're dark and moody. It gives you a feeling of cold breezes and a light rain, just this dark moment at night. Everything here is fairly vague, but it's still defined enough to understand. It's probably one of the most comprehensible Bill Sienkiewicz pages that I've ever seen, too. These pages must be gorgeous in black and white with no text. Ugh. Ugh. Around noon, Superman and Wonder Woman visit the Alien Alliance ship that is towing the remnants of the Paradox craft. Superman is horrified to discover that the Alliance has chosen Mongal as their new queen. Given all of the death and destruction that her father and brother have brought to the universe, Superman fears that Mongal shall do the same, but to them. But a representative of the Alliance speaks for all of them. They know who Mongal is and what her family has done. Almerac, the empire that had been ruled by Maxima before her death, has always prospered under the rule of a warrior queen, though, and they're satisfied with their choice. Wonder Woman tries to calm Superman down. After all, they came here to pay their respects to the dead, and these people have chosen their leader. They need to respect their wishes. The fate of the Alien Alliance is not a plotline that I honestly thought we were going to be following up upon at all. I'm guessing that this is probably more of a setup for a future plotline in one of the Superman books. This scene works fine. There isn't exactly a lot of subtlety here or character work, but it is definitely the least touching or emotional scene of the book. I do think that there's like a nugget of something interesting about Wonder Woman, who is a warrior princess, defending the rule of a new warrior queen, though. I don't think Wonder Woman approves of Mongal's appointment, but she does approve of the democratic process that got Mongal there. And if she's ever a threat, well, Superman can deal with it. Superman and Wonder Woman return to Earth next, flying to Smallville, Kansas, in order to visit the Strange Visitors Memorial Site. The memorial is a nice-looking, modern art kind of take on a female figure who is kneeling. Her hands and lower legs merge into the memorial base, her back arched forward so her hands are kind of level with her butt. There are no facial details to indicate a sense of personhood or an identity, save for a ponytail hanging out the back. In terms of visually representing someone called the Strange Visitor, I think that the statue actually does a pretty good job. Sitting on that foundation is a man in a jacket and some rough khakis. He glares at the heroes as they drift down, telling them that it's about time that they showed up. This is Billy Wilson, and my research tells me that he was Sharon Vance's fiancé before she flew to Metropolis. It was on that flight that Sharon was struck by lightning, died, and had Kismet enter her body, becoming the Strange Visitor. Billy, however, doesn't know any of that information. All that he knows is that the woman he loved left him, became a superhero, and then died in some stupid space war, and no one even came to her memorial. Superman does his best to comfort the guy, telling him that Sharon died a true hero, but that only angers Billy further. You know, if Superman was even actually there, then why didn't he save her? Look, people like Superman come to this hick town, they say a few nice words, then they fly back to their secret headquarters and everyone else is just left to pick up the pieces. Do they think that everything is just fine after that? Because it's not. Normal people have to live in this world. They don't get to just fly off. Maybe if they knew what it was like to lose someone, they could understand how he feels. Maybe. Wonder Woman awkwardly looks away, and Superman's eyebrows sweep up in pain as Billy leaves. Once he's gone, Wonder Woman tries to excuse Billy's remarks. You know, he's grieving, he didn't know, not really, he wasn't there. But Superman thinks that he might actually be right. They did show up after the fact to finish the memorial, and here he lights a small rectangle at the base of the memorial's legs with his heat vision, creating a blue flame. And then they're just gonna leave. Maybe Batman was right. Are they responsible for all the world's pain? What about its hope? Where is the thing that's going to inspire them all to keep living, to keep moving forward? She rests a hand on his shoulder. He's done enough today. He should find Lois, and Superman perks up at Lois's name. They're going to bury her father at sunset, he says. And he almost forgot. How could he forget that? Then he turns to Wonder Woman. They've still got more work to do. Can she handle it by herself? Wonder Woman says that she'll be fine. Superman flies off, leaving her alone. This is easily the most emotional scene in this issue for me. Billy's grief over the death of Sharon is just so powerful. And I've always felt, this is going to sound like such an emo thing to say, but I've always felt particularly connected to sadness for some reason. I sympathize with others very easily, even fictional characters, and Billy's scene is just so potent. I love that Sharon's heroism doesn't make up for her being gone to him. To Billy, Sharon is a gap in his life, and no amount of kind-hearted euphemisms can begin to make up for it. I super love the bitterly ironic accusation that if only Wonder Woman and Superman had lost someone, they might understand what this war was like for normal people. The ironic part, of course, is that they did lose people. But they also know that Billy is grieving, so they don't try to defend themselves or argue back at all. And honestly, what would they even say if they did? We lost people and we're sad too? We understand your rage at the loss? None of that would have helped. None of that would have made Billy feel better. So they just take it. And even that idea ties into Superman's mentality over the past few issues. They accept his accusations because they can stand against them. As Superman told Batman, the world needs them, and Billy needed to do this. So, they bear one more weight on their shoulders. But why the floop should they? After all that Superman has been through and everything he has lost or given up in this war, including the fact that he still hasn't had a chance to grieve his losses yet, doesn't he deserve a moment to be angry? To be sad? Who does he yell at about the injustice of the universe? Maybe Batman has a point. I also like that Superman almost forgot Major Lane's funeral. He was so busy fighting the war that he ignored Lois and her father died as a result, and then he is so busy cleaning up after the war that he almost forgets about the funeral. Being Superman is driving him away from his family concerns, and that's a problem. On the moon, the Red Tornado contacts Batman at his cave. The JLA computers have tracked Young Justice's ship to their last known coordinates, putting them on Apokolips, which is no longer in this universe. Batman suggests that
they call Mr. Miracle or Orion, who are new gods with access to boom tube technology. That way they can get to Apokolips and find their kids.
Red Tornado isn't terribly worried about it yet. Those kids tend to turn up when things are at their worst, like right now, and he is sure that they're alive. Which is right when a boob tube opens and spits out their spaceship. The craft slams into the surface of the moon and grinds to a stop. The Red Tornado shouts to the base to extend its force field, that way those inside of the ship can breathe when they exit, and then he runs outside. Dirty, shaken, battered, and beaten, the heroes who are called Young Justice exit their ship. Thankfully, they are back. Red Tornado immediately contacts Batman to tell him, relieving him of that fear. This scene is kind of silly, but honestly, after the gut punch that was that scene with Billy, a lighter moment is kinda nice. This also wraps up all of our ongoing outside of Superman concerns, which will allow the book to end back on our star. But since I'm putting this crossover into my Young Justice collection, I super appreciated this moment. Young Justice's final tie-in issue was issue 37, which ended with the kids escaping their apocalyptican captors and reaching their ship, but then that's it. That's just where it ends. Issue 38 then opens on Earth after the kids have already arrived safely and had time to decompress a little bit. So I really had no idea how the kids got home. There was just this gap. But now I do, so that's good. The lighter, "Oh, look at this coincidental arrival just as we're talking about the kids arriving" kind of tone is actually really appropriate given young Justice's general tone. Author Peter David's writing style is a mix of irreverent comedy and really strong emotional character work, so this kind of balances that well. These 3 pages are also penciled by Todd Knock, who is the regular artist on Young Justice, so again, it just fits right in perfectly. This looks and feels like it was ripped from the pages of Young Justice itself, and I really appreciate that kind of consistency. That evening, a crowd of mourners gathers at Fort Bridwell Military Cemetery, which is just outside of Metropolis. Superman is present, but in his Clark Kent mode with his wife Lois. The scene is presented to us wordlessly, allowing the gravity of the moment to sink in. A pair of men pick up and fold the American flag that was laying over Major Lane's casket, offering to President Luthor once they're finished. As a 21-gun salute is fired, Luthor passes the flag to Major Lane's wife, Ella. He then kisses Lois on the cheek, smirking at Clark as he passes. Clark then leans forward and whispers into Lois's ear, and she smiles. In a flash, Clark is gone. And I know that he's fast, but no one notices that he's just all of a sudden gone, and then Superman shows up. There is a huge gust of wind. He passes between 3 people. They would notice that a body that was just there is now gone from the crowd. Come on, man. I'm not saying he couldn't have found a way to sneak away from this memorial, but I think it would have been a lot more difficult than this. Anyways, Luthor scowls as Superman floats down from the sky and then salutes the casket. Afterwards, Clark carries Lois through the air as the day turns to night. They stop at the destroyed Kent family farm, and Lois is nearly speechless. He told her that it was bad, but she couldn't picture this. What's he going to do about it? Is he going to fix the farm? Clark doesn't answer right away. Instead, he says that everyone who fought in this war are the best. They are the world's finest. Roll credits! Shut up! And then lifts up the broken mailbox, and a single tear runs down his face. They won the war, right? They won. As much as it pains me to say this, these 2 end scenes don't really do much for me. Well, one of them doesn't do much for me, and the other ending scene is okay. In general, the funeral scene to me is the worst of the 2. It has all of the formality and respect that a man like Sam Lane would want at his funeral, and that stuff's great. As the Secretary of Defense, it makes sense that President Luthor is there, but I kinda really hate his kiss on Lois's cheek. I'm guessing that we're probably supposed to. After all, as an audience, we know that Luthor is a power-mad, manipulative supervillain. This peck on the cheek looks to the rest of the mourners like a show of compassion and caring to this woman who just lost her father in service to his country. But to Superman and to Lois and to us, it is a crossing of a line. So they decide to get back at Luthor. Rather than the president remaining the focus of this funeral and his kind magnanimity, Superman steals the show. This is a man that many people think is probably the greatest superhero in the world, and he shows up to pay his respects to a fallen soldier, a normal man. They don't know that Superman is married to Major Lane's daughter or that he has a beef with Lex Luthor. All they know is that the greatest hero in the world showed up to pay his respects, and that is gold in terms of winning the hearts and minds of people. However, that also ruins the scene. This issue is about mourning the dead, about giving them the respect that they have earned after sacrificing their lives on the battlefield. But Luthor and Superman turn this moment into a conflict between them, each one biting their thumb at the other. This moment almost feels playful after the scene with Young Justice, so maybe Loeb wanted to swing the narrative in a more positive direction as the issue was ending, but this doesn't actually feel positive at all. This feels more like two kids shooting rubber bands at each other in church, hoping that no one notices as they giggle and shove about. It's just disrespectful, and the whole tone feels off compared to the rest of the book. The final scene, with Lois and Clark at the Kent farm, is where I think that this story should end, though. Don't get me wrong, Our Worlds at War is a big event. As I mentioned before, if you got everything branded with the Our Worlds at War artwork, this is 35 issues stretched over roughly 3 months. That's 4 Superman ongoing series, Wonder Woman's, Superboy's, Supergirl's, and Young Justice's ongoing series, plus the solo tie-in issues. So, what starts as a Superman story balloons up rather quickly, and now the authors have to shrink things back down to just the 4 Superman books. Using this issue to wrap up all of those other plot lines, and then end at Superman's home with his wife as he ponders what he should do next, is pretty perfect. I want to know what he does next, and this is the only Superman arc that I've ever read. That's how invested I am. Yes, please draw me into your next set of issues. But then it doesn't. It very much leaves us wondering, our final question actually posed by Lois Lane herself: what does Superman do next? He isn't ready to move on yet. He can't think about what comes next because he hasn't even been allowed to grieve yet. At least Aquaman and the Strange Visitor got memorials. The deaths of Hippolyta and Sam Lane were mourned for. They were said goodbye to. But there was no funeral for the Kents. No one is fixing their broken home or replanting their destroyed crops. Even the city of Smallville lies in disrepair. And for perhaps the first time in this story, Clark is really letting himself feel those losses. And on the one hand, that is great, as it means that Clark can at least begin to heal. But it also sucks as an ending, because I don't really have anything to pull me forward into the next couple of issues. At the Strange Visitor scene, Superman asked Wonder Woman where was the hope to inspire them all to keep moving. And this issue ends without providing that hope. There's a part of me that kinda just wants to see Superman be depressed for a few days. Like, maybe he takes some time off of being Superman and just stays at the Kent farm, fixing things by hand. Maybe some of his friends or his neighbors could come by and help without them being asked to, and in that common bond of family he could find his hope. This is why he fought, to be honest, to save the good things about humanity. And those good things are the people around us, and the way that they support us when we need them to. And that fanfic ending that I just wrote is about as close to an ending as I'm going to get for now, because I am not buying like 6 years worth of 4 different Superman comics just to find out. I'm tempted. I'm very sorely tempted. But no. A nice thing about this issue, by the way, is that the very final page, where a letters column would be in a regular comic, there is actually a story guide to Our Worlds at War. So, rather than having to go back and reread 3 issues of Young Justice, 4 issues of Superboy, 1 of Impulse, and then put all of that together with these 11 Superman comics we just broke down, I can just follow this guide when assembling my collection. That is so nice. It's really easy to just say that you'll put a crossover collection together as you're reading it when the event is fresh in your mind and you're just feeling it and all of it works. But honestly, when you read as many comics as I do, you just can't. Having a nice start here and just follow the bouncing ball is a great boon. And while it is a little bittersweet to have it come at the end of the event, this also helps fill in any gaps you may have had. So let's say you were buying all of this stuff, but you didn't think to get Supergirl. Well, now you know exactly what issues you need to get. So this is also a good way to fill in the collection if you were missing things. So that's it. Our Worlds at War is over. And I have to say, I had a great time with this. Collecting a crossover that you're unfamiliar with can get really dicey, or even rebuying a crossover for a new collection can suck if you don't particularly like it. But man, do I think I knocked it out of the park with this one. The overall story was pretty interesting, the characters were well realized and stayed true to who they were, even as the story explored other sides of them, the stakes were high, the ideas were big, and it all worked well. I was very skeptical of the third hour villain switch out to Brainiac 13, but keeping Imperix's energies inside of Warworld was a great idea. Rather than replacing Imperiex, the authors just found a way to double the threat instead. Superman couldn't kill Brainiac 13 even if he wanted to because of the threat of Imperiex, but keeping Imperiex imprisoned meant leaving Brainiac 13 supercharged, and that's good plotting, that's a great idea. Some of the finer plot points are half-baked at best, especially the time travel stuff or exactly what kind of energy beam LexCorp Tower could fire, but the broad strokes are all there enough and the emotional stakes are so well done that honestly I am very satisfied with this. So the real question here is how well does this blend with my Young Justice collection? I'm sure you've all been wondering this yourself, probably since the very beginning of this crossover. It is clearly something that has been weighing on your minds and mine. Well, that's a little bit harder to judge. The thing that ultimately drew me into getting these books is that in issue like 35 or 36 of Young Justice, the team witnesses the Black Racer delivering Steel's dead body to Apocalypse. Superboy, who knows Steel, wants to go save him, but Robin, who is the team's leader, won't let him do it. It's just too dangerous to go alone. But the team had been questioning Robin's role as team leader anyways after recent events in their book, so they backed up Superboy. Half of the team then went after Steel with Superboy, peeling off one of the team's strongest individual members on perhaps the most dangerous planet in the DC universe. This led to Young Justice getting captured, being tortured, and Impulse, who is a super speedster like the Flash and who had just recently discovered that he could create copies of himself that basically would move through time, witnessed one of those copies getting killed. He felt its death as if it were his own. And even once the kids are safely back on Earth and in their base, they're still reeling from these events for a while. All of which is super compelling and really interesting and has some great character work being done. But it also has next to nothing to do with the Superman comics in this event. Ultimately, this ends up feeling like there are two sets of train tracks that veer very close to each other, but never actually cross before peeling off into their own directions. There's also a moment in one of the Superboy issues, I think it was issue 91, that features Superman and his dog, Crypto, stopping one of the Imperiex probes in Antarctica, and that gets referenced in Action Comics issue 781, so that also helps my timeline out a bit. Other than those 2 points, though, these two comics might as well remain separate. But like I said, I ain't putting together a massive Superman collection at this stage in my life. No, sir. This crossover is going into my Young Justice collection if it kills me. Although I might get those Wonder Woman tie-in issues. Having finished Our Worlds at War, I definitely think that I should have just run this series as 8 episodes in a row, rather than scattering it throughout the Fantastic Four Volume 3 episodes. Even I was having a hard time recalling what happened in the last 3 episodes each time I sat down to start the next batch, so we'll consider that lesson learned for the future. Next week, we are bouncing back to the Fantastic Four for what I hope and pray is my last chunk of issues on that series. Mr. Fantastic and Dr. Doom just stopped Earth from merging with the reborn Earth in our last issue and defeated the dreaming Celestial who was called the Apostate. But doing so only left one of the 2 men standing, and it was Dr. Doom. And you can't really have a Fantastic Four book without a 4th character, right? So we need a replacement for Mr. Fantastic, and Dr. Doom is standing right there. Join me next week for Comic Book Breakdown episode 12.22, The Man in the Iron Mask. Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.